You are looking at the wrong place. Everyone does. And I understand why. The tree is rooted below. The roots disappear downward. The trunk rises upward from the earth. The whole picture says, this thing came from down there. But it did not. Most of what you are standing beside, the dry mass of it, the wood of it, the trunk and the branches and the bark, did not come from the ground. It came from the sky, from the air, from a gas so thin and so invisible that you have never once thought of it as a building material. And I can prove this to you with a pot of soil, a small tree, a scale, and 5 years of patience. A scientist named Jan Baptist van Helmont did exactly that. He planted a small willow in a container holding 200 pounds of carefully dried soil. He weighed the tree. He weighed the soil. He watered it, left it alone, and came back 5 years later. The tree had gained 164 pounds. The soil had lost less than 2 ounces. Less than 2 ounces. I want you to sit with that arithmetic for a moment, not because it is surprising in a pleasant way, because it is the kind of number that should make your previous model of the world feel slightly embarrassed. A tree cannot gain 164 pounds from a source that contributed less than 2 ounces. That is not biology. That is not chemistry. That is just counting. So the ground is not the answer. Now, Van Helmont was intelligent. He looked at the water next. Reasonable move. Eliminate one answer, examine the nearest alternative. A tree drinks enormous quantities of water. Perhaps the mass came from there. That answer is also wrong, or rather, incomplete in a way that points somewhere far more interesting. Because the real answer requires you to look somewhere your intuition was never going to look on its own. Not below your feet, above your head. Water seems like it should be sufficient. I understand the appeal of the answer. A large tree moves quantities of water that are genuinely staggering. On a warm day, it pulls water up from the roots, sends it through the trunk and out along every branch, and then releases it back into the atmosphere through the leaves. Over decades, the volume involved becomes almost impossible to hold in the imagination. So yes, water matters, profoundly. Some of the hydrogen in a tree's tissues comes from water. Some of the oxygen comes from water. The chemistry of life runs on it. But here is the difficulty. The dry structure of wood, the part you could cut, stack, carve, or burn, is built primarily from carbon-rich compounds. Cellulose, lignin, the stiff, load-bearing framework that allows a tree to stand upright for centuries. These materials are rich in carbon, and carbon is the element you must account for if you want to explain where the mass actually went. The minerals from the soil matter too. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, essential, every one of them. But they are not the bulk of the wood. They are vital ingredients, not the primary construction material. So the question sharpens. Where does the carbon come from? I find this moment in a problem to be the most satisfying. When the first obvious answer has failed, and the second obvious answer is failing, and the mind is finally forced to abandon its assumptions and look somewhere genuinely unexpected. The carbon comes from the air, from carbon dioxide. That invisible gas drifting around you right now, so thinly distributed that you barely register it as substance at all. That is where the tree is building itself from. I know how that sounds. It sounds like I am being poetic, or imprecise, or trying to make something mundane seem more interesting than it is. I am a physicist. I am not being poetic. I am being exact. Air is matter. It has mass. It can be compressed, weighed, measured, and divided into its components. And within that air is carbon dioxide, invisible, weightless feeling, unimpressive, drifting through the atmosphere until a leaf reaches out and takes hold of it. That is the step. That is the one almost nobody imagines. The tree is not pulling its mass from below, it is pulling its mass from above. Now let me show you how. Sunlight reaches a leaf. That sentence sounds ordinary. It is not ordinary. Light arriving from a star nearly 93 million miles away, carrying energy across empty space, striking a molecule inside a cell no larger than a fraction of a millimeter. That is not ordinary. That is extraordinary, and we have simply become accustomed to it. When that light reaches chlorophyll inside the leaf, certain wavelengths are absorbed. Electrons in those molecules are pushed into higher energy states. This is not a metaphor. This is a physical event. Energy arrives from the sun. An electron is excited. The plant captures that event and does something remarkable with it. It does not let the energy simply become heat. It stores it in chemical form, in molecules the cell can use to perform work. Part of that work involves splitting water. This point is worth getting right because it is frequently misunderstood. The oxygen that plants release into the atmosphere, the oxygen you are breathing right now, comes from water, not from carbon dioxide. Water molecules are split apart. Electrons are moved through a chain of reactions. Energy is stored, and oxygen is released as a byproduct. You are, in a meaningful sense, breathing the leftovers of a tree's water-splitting operation. I find that pleasing to think about. Then comes the harder achievement. The plant uses that stored chemical energy to pull carbon out of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a stable molecule. It does not volunteer to become part of a tree. The plant must spend energy to force its carbon into new arrangements. Through a long sequence of reactions, and I will not bore you with every intermediate step, though I find none of them boring, that carbon becomes sugar, glucose, a small organic molecule. What was a diffuse atmospheric gas is now part of a living cell. That sugar can be burned immediately for energy. It can be transported elsewhere in the plant, or it can become the raw material for something more permanent. The tree links sugar-derived units into cellulose, the main structural material of plant cell walls. It reinforces tissues with lignin, which adds rigidity and toughness. It lays these materials down layer by layer, season after season, year after year. That is how a trunk thickens. That is how rings form. That is how invisible carbon from the atmosphere becomes the visible, tangible solidity of wood. Let me say this carefully, because the distinction matters and it is easy to get it slightly wrong. Sunlight does not become the wood. The wood is made from atoms, chiefly carbon atoms, which came from carbon dioxide in the air. Hydrogen and oxygen atoms, which came largely from water, and small but essential contributions from the minerals in the soil. What sunlight provides is the energy, the power to drive the chemistry, the ability to take scattered, simple molecules drifting through the atmosphere and assemble them into organized, living, load-bearing matter. Sunlight became chemical potential. Chemical potential drove carbon fixation. Carbon fixation produced sugar. Sugar became cellulose and lignin. And cellulose and lignin became the tree you can press your hand against. When you see the sequence in full, the claim that seemed absurd becomes exact. A large portion of what stands before you as wood was, not very long ago, carbon dioxide moving freely through the sky. Now the story takes one more step, because the moment you understand where the tree came from, you are one step from understanding where a significant part of you came from as well. Every meal you have ever eaten enters this story somewhere. If you eat plants, the chain is short. If you eat animals, the chain is longer, but it arrives at the same origin. Plants are the intermediaries, the bridge between sunlight, atmospheric carbon, and the food web that follows. The carbon in your muscles, your skin, your organs, your neurons, it has passed through this cycle. At some point, that carbon was in the atmosphere. A plant captured it. Chemistry transformed it. Food carried it. Life rearranged it into you. You and the tree are not merely living in the same world. You are made from the same ancient traffic of matter, moving through air, leaf, body, soil, and sky over timescales that make a human life feel like a brief pause in a very long sentence. That is not poetry pretending to be science. That is biochemistry. I want to say something about why this matters to me. Not the chemistry specifically, the pattern. A tree appears to be a product of earth. It looks as though the ground slowly rose into the shape of a trunk. It looks rooted below and therefore built from below. That appearance is so persuasive, so consistent with everything the eye can see, that generations accepted it without serious question. Van Helmont questioned it. He did not do so because he had a sophisticated theory. He did so because he decided to weigh things carefully and see whether the numbers matched the story. They did not. He still did not reach the final answer. He thought the mass came from water, which was closer but still incomplete. But he did something more important than reaching the answer. He showed that if you measure carefully enough, nature will correct your imagination. That is the pattern I have spent my life in love with. The world does not hide its most important secrets in distant galaxies or inside elaborate machines, though I have spent considerable time in both places. It hides them in ordinary things, in a tree, in a leaf, in a breath. In a piece of wood you have walked past 10,000 times without asking what it actually is. The most important answers are often hidden not because they are far away, but because they are too familiar. You see a tree and think, earth. You see something solid and think, ground. You see something invisible and think, negligible. But the tree is not built from the ground. It is built from carbon that came from the air, captured through leaves no thicker than a few cells, rearranged with extraordinary patience, and locked into structure by chemistry powered by a star. Every plank in every house, every wooden table, every beam, every page, every chair, every violin, every forest path under your feet, all of it began as invisible carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. When I look at an oak, I do not see dirt that stood up. I see sunlight put to work. I see a living system patient enough to pull invisible matter from the sky and stack it, atom by atom, into weight, grain, form, and strength. I see a star, a gas, a leaf, and a century collaborating. Understanding this does not reduce the tree. It reveals the tree. And once revealed, the tree becomes more astonishing than it was before. The bark becomes evidence. The wood becomes history. The leaves become instruments. The whole organism becomes a slow, disciplined answer to a question most people never think to ask. Where did the mass come from? From the air. If you enjoy the moment when appearance gives way to reality, subscribe. That is what this channel is for.